Well, good morning, everyone. I'd like to welcome you here to the meeting of the Minnehaha County Commission. We'll go ahead and start the meeting with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Just a reminder that meeting documents are available for review down on the end next to Commissioner Heiberger. Please remember to silence your cell phone. It's always a good reminder for me. And Craig is here today if you need a listening device. So that takes us to our first items of special business. This is our first meeting of the year, so our opening business meeting. And I would consider a motion to amend the amount listed on agenda item 10, bills to be paid from $403,652.30 to $398,731.05.
Madam Chair, it's my privilege to make that motion.
Second.
In a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Next, I'd consider a motion to approve the agenda as amended.
Motion to approve the amended agenda.
Got a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. The next item is the selection of the commission chairperson for 2020.
Make a motion to nominate Commissioner Bender to the position of Commission Chair.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any other willing victims? If not, I'd entertain a roll call vote, please.
Barth.
Aye.
Benega.
Aye.
Heiberger.
Aye.
Karski. Bender.
Aye. Motion passes unanimously. Next item is the selection of the commission vice chairman for year 2020.
Madam Chair,
Commissioner.
I'd like to nominate Commissioner Karski for Vice Chair.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any other comment? All right. Roll call vote, please.
Benega.
Aye.
Heiberger.
Aye.
Karski.
Aye.
Barth.
Aye.
Bender.
Aye. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you very much. Next item is the designation of the official county newspaper for year 2020. I think if there are folks out there waiting for seats, there are some
There are
seats
some
over
over, yes,
on the
ma'am.
other side of the room over here.
Madam Chair, we're designating newspapers. I would like to retain the same ones we had last year. I think we've benefited immensely from having full coverage around the county, and I appreciate their work.
I'll second that.
Motion and a second. Any other comment or question, Commissioner Heiberger?
There are some of the newspapers here. I just wondered if we should give them an opportunity to comment.
Yes, some of the publishers of the newspapers are here, Madam Chair, if you would like to take comment from them.
If they would like to come forward and comment one at a time, that'd be great. Thank you. We appreciate you all coming this morning.
Garrick Moritz, editor and owner of the Garrettson Gazette. I'm the smallest of this group. And yes, we're very pleased to the three of us, the Messenger, the Journal, and the Gazette, are very pleased to have our representative here also. You guys see him all the time, Dave Baumeister. He does he covers the county commissions and does county-related stories. He's sort of our county beat guy, and we're thankful for the commissioners for their motion. And if you have any questions at all, please feel free to ask us. And keep supporting democracy and freedom of the press as you have done. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning. Jill Meyer with the Brandon Valley Journal, the publisher there. Thank you for investing in 4 newspapers last year. It means a lot to us. I hope you have found that you're getting some good bang for your buck, informing our entire community or county as well as we can. We look forward to working with you in the future. And again, like Garrick said, thank you for promoting freedom of the press.
Good morning.
Good morning. Matt Anderson, Anderson Publications, the Messenger, Minnehaha Messenger, and the Del Rapids City Journal, a new paper that we started last year. Those have been sold, and Lisa Miller of New Century Press is here representing them, and they will be in good hands, probably better hands than my own. And so I wanted to thank you as well for all the support and everything for the Minnehaha newspapers. Thank you.
Good morning. I'm Lisa Miller, General Manager of New Century Press. And as Matt said, we'll be taking over. Actually, today is our first issue going out with Anderson Publications. We have 13 other publications, and they're just going to be added into our group. And we're very excited to work partner and hand in hand with you with the Messenger and Dells. Thank you.
All right,
Madam
thank you.
Chair,
Commissioner Barth.
Ms. Miller, could you leave us your business card?
All right, anyone else? Seeing no one, that we had a motion and a second to retain all the current publications. Roll call vote, please.
Heiberger,
Aye.
Karski,
Aye.
Barth,
Aye.
Benega,
Aye.
Bender.
Aye. Motion passes unanimously. Next item is item 6. I would consider a motion to take official action to record the non-elected department heads for 2020. We have Carol Muller in the Commission Office, Monty Wattenbach in the Information Technology Office, DJ Boothie in Highway, Jamie Gravitt in Juvenile Detention Center, Mark Krinz Facilities, Bill Hoskins Museum, Carrie Jo Deaver Human Resources, Scott Anderson Planning and Zoning Parks, Julie Hofer Public Advocate, Tracy Smith Public Defender, Carrie Benz Human Services, and Chris Lilla Equalization. We are all very blessed to work with such great folks. I'd entertain a motion on that.
Move for approval.
Second.
It's a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Next item is I'd consider a motion to appoint the Minnehaha County Coroner for 2020.
Motion to approve the coroner?
Second.
Motion and a second. Roll call vote, please.
Karski,
Aye.
Barth,
Aye.
Benega,
Aye.
Heiberger,
Aye.
Bender.
Aye. Motion passes unanimously.
We're lucky to have him.
We are lucky to have him. And the next item is to determine the 2020 salary for Minnehaha County Commission. Carol Muller.
Good morning, Commissioners. Yes, one of the things that you need to do during your organizing meeting, the first meeting of the year, is to set the salary for the county commissioners. If you don't do so, by statute, you revert back to a $7,233 salary that is defined by statute. This year, you were paid $28,100.80. And the people are wondering why that's such an odd number, is because we need to have it divisible for our software system, divisible by 26 in most years. 2020, it needs to be divisible by 27 because of how the calendar dates fall on there. What you've budgeted would be an increase to, let me make sure I find the right number here, an increase to $29,180.60. If you look over the years, I averaged that out between 2014 and 2020. That represents an average salary increase of 1.75% per year as you go all the way across on that. You do pay the chairperson roughly $1,000 a year for their many, many hours that they get to put in for all the planning and administrative work that goes into it. Again, that needs to be divisible by 27 for 2020, and that dollar amount would be $30,240.
Thank you. It's always a little bit of awkward conversation here. We have had an opportunity to discuss this a little bit. I'd entertain a motion.
Madam Chair, it is a difficult problem, and certainly it's tough for me to try to do the math sitting here on this. So Carol, does the number that you suggested work mathematically?
Yes.
Well, I guess I would make a motion to approve the number, whatever that was.
And I'll second it, and if I could ask a question.
Commissioner Karski?
And Carrie Deaver, I hate to put you on the spot, but if you don't mind. Carrie's our HR director, and I know that you've done market analysis of, and we try to stay competitive with what's going on around the area. Where would that put us relatively as commissioners to other similar sized counties in the region?
And I apologize, I didn't bring those figures, but they're easy enough for me to remember. When you say we try to be competitive, I think you do a wonderful job in trying to be competitive with your other positions. Honestly, you've been very frugal with your own salaries. You're at least $3,000 below the market average.
Okay, So we're below.
Even with the proposal.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Heiberger?
Just a couple just for the public information, we don't get holidays, we don't get holiday pay, we don't get sick pay, we don't take vacation pay, we just take the strict pay that we have. And my other comment was that, Carol, I believe I misheard you, or it's $29,181.60. She said $180. And so just clarifying, since we just said we're approving your amount.
Thank
that's
you
an
very
additional
much.
dollar.
Thank you for correcting on that. The other thing, just to follow up to Commissioner Heiberger, I would add that in Minnehaha County, the commissioners do not receive health benefits, nor are they part of any retirement system.
All right, thank you. So we had a motion and a second. Any further comments? If not, roll call vote, please.
Arth,
Aye.
Benega,
Aye.
Heiberger,
Aye.
Karski,
Aye.
Bender.
Aye. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you very much. So that takes us to routine business. First item is to approve the Minnehaha County Commission meetings for December 31st, 2019.
Motion to approve the minutes?
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Next item are bills to be paid in the amount of $398,731.05. I was asked to announce that there was an entry on page 7 for a bill to be paid to the Carroll Institute in the amount of $4,921.25. That was stricken to correcting the general fund total on page 2 and the bills to be paid total on page 1 in accordance with the motion made earlier to amend the agenda. That was
Madam
all.
Chair, let's pay those bills.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any comments, questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Thank you. Next item, item 11, reports. There are none. Item 12, personnel. Consider a motion to approve the routine personnel actions.
Motion to approve routine actions?
Motion
Second.
and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Good morning, Carrie.
Good morning, Carrie Deaver from Human Resources. I have a couple of items for you. The second item on your personnel list is to recognize the January 2020 significant employee anniversaries, and I have a long list. We have Gail Eastland in the State's Attorney's Office celebrating 5 years, Rhett By in the State's Attorney's Office celebrating 10, Scott Berg in Highway, Dwayne King in Equalization, Kara Nadolski in Human Services, also celebrating 10 years of service. Celebrating 15, we have Carrie Meesberts in the State's Attorney's Office, Miranda Peterson in the State's Attorney's Office, Scott Anderson in Planning, Randy Fodds in Highway. Celebrating 20 years of service, we have Aaron Curry in the Public Advocate's Office and Julie Ty in the Sheriff's Office. And our grand winner for today is Mary Baker in the Public Advocate's Office celebrating 25 years of service. We have a big crowd. I'm not sure if you're one of our employees, if you want to wave.
There's one there.
It's safe. Oh, great.
Carrie obviously doesn't know me that well. So I'm Scott Anderson, the planning director, and I just wanted to thank everyone for putting up with me for 15 years. And I will just indicate that 15 years has flown by, and I appreciate working with all of you and the public. And as always, if anyone ever has any questions about planning and zoning, they should come see me. Thank you.
We appreciate you too, Scott. All the people in Minnehaha County are indebted to the work you and your office do.
I see we have
Sir.
a couple more people, but they seem a little shy, so.
That wants to follow Scott up to the mic?
Carrie, would you just say who's here?
We have Dwayne. Anyone else that I'm missing? Okay. Oh, Gail's here too. in the back corner.
Hey, well, thank you all. It's very, very impressive. We really appreciate we're all indebted to all the work that you have contributed to the county, so thank you.
And it's always fun to have you come, so thank you guys for coming. The next item I have for you is to record the December 2019 department volunteers, 275 individuals helping us out in December, so our gratitude to them.
Which is also very impressive. Thank you very
Thanks.
much. All right. So that takes us to item 13, applications for abatement, and there are none. Item 14, notices and requests. There are none. Item 15, planning and zoning notices. There are none. And item 16, petition for compromise of lien. There are none. So now this is our opportunity for public comment. If there's anyone here who would like to speak about something, this is your opportunity.
Madam Chair,
Commissioner Barth.
I know that they are here for another reason, but we have two legislators here. Wonder if they'd care to address us. I know Wayne Steinhauer has more years in planning and zoning than Scott Anderson. And maybe they want to defer, but.
Word is going to get out. People are going to stop coming to our meetings because Commissioner Barth always calls you out. We do appreciate both of you being here. If you would like to say something, you're welcome. But all right, thank you. People always appreciate politicians that don't take the opportunity to go and talk. So
You'll never catch me doing that.
but we do really notice that you're here and really appreciate you guys coming. Thank you very much. We thank you for the work you do in Pierre as well. All right, so that takes us to regular business. Item 17, which is a public hearing and second reading of rezoning request 19-08. David, good morning.
Good morning, Commission. David Heinold, County Planning Department. Rezoning -1908 is actually rezoning to rezone from the A1 Agricultural District to the I1 Light Industrial District. The property is at 48127 South Dakota Highway 42. It's about 3.5 miles east of Sioux Falls. The property owner is Douglas Odie and Royalwood Farms, and the petitioner has provided a written statement, which I provided to the county commissioners, that he would like to remove his name from the rezoning application, who originally submitted that. Staff contacted the current property owner, and Mr. Odie would like to proceed with the rezoning process that has been scheduled for a public hearing today. The county Planning Commission heard this item in November at the meeting, and they voted 6-0. Commissioner Odie abstained from the vote to recommend approval of this rezoning. I have a few photos that I'd like to go through now that I have this up. The property itself is located, as you see, outlined in red. It's directly across the street from an existing kind of warehouse storage area to the north of South Dakota Highway 42. The property is currently being used for a house and for agricultural purposes, as you'll see in some of the later photos. As you can see, the surrounding area to the southeast is Merlin Roy's. There's a large mining operation to the southeast, about a half mile away, or just less than a half mile. And then to the west of that, you'll see a rubble operation there. That's right at the intersection of the county highway and the state highway. And then to the north, as I mentioned, was the existing storage units and warehouse business area that is zoned light industrial as well. This is looking at the current house. This is the driveway that comes off the state highway. As you can see some of the buildings in the background. You see the barn, you see the silo, and the other buildings. This is looking towards the rubble operation that's, as I mentioned, looking off into the distance past the trees on the petitioner's property. This is looking east on Highway 42. As you can see to the left is that warehouse area, and Rowena is off in the distance about a mile and a half away. This is looking back west on Highway 42, back towards the property in the intersection, the state highway. And this is that industrial area across the street. And this is looking back west towards, as you can see, the petitioner's property is off to the left of that, the driveway. And this is that existing agricultural area that is also the subject property, which is partially included on the rezoning request. As you, the entire property is not included with the rezoning. Just the property outlined in red is. This is the looking towards the mining area, and there's also a creek down below there as well. And the agricultural area again. This is looking towards the east. Off to the right, you can see there's the agricultural field, and then you can see some of the traffic there on the highway. And then this is looking back west. And this is just showing that little creek area that runs through the property, which actually runs a little bit in the portion of the rezoning area. And this is the last photo that I have that shows the mining area in the background. They've got their buffer there with the trees. As you see on the other side of that is Merlin Roy's. And I believe that's all the photos I have. This is the last photo, just kind of showing a zoomed out view of the entire property. And so with that, I've included all the information. The Board of County Commissioners may vote to approve or deny rezoning 19-08, and the property owner is here to answer any questions, and I will answer any questions if you have them.
Commissioner Heiberger?
I just have a couple of questions. So outlined in red is what they want to be rezoned, so the agricultural is going to go away, and also the housing, is that eventually going away? I mean, so I feel like there was some unanswered questions.
So if the property is rezoned to light industrial, then the house would become a grandfathered use. So if it were to go away, then they wouldn't be able to replace that.
It's a grandfathered use, so if they tore down the house, there would not be another building eligibility on the property? Is that what you're telling me?
They wouldn't be able to build a new house
Correct.
on the property.
But they could remodel the house that they had currently because it's grandfathered in.
They wouldn't be able to make any future changes to the house in addition to the existing house. So adding on to the house.
So basically, that goes away. Scott, is that right? I'm sorry, I'm just thinking, I want to make sure we clarify going forward, maybe it's a moot point.
I think Commissioner Heiberger, you were asking if they could remodel it. They can remodel it, and so they can make internal changes and continue to use the house, but they would not be allowed to expand it or put an addition on it.
Okay. And then, David, the agricultural part of it?
The agricultural part would be removed.
Any other questions for
Yeah,
David?
sure.
Commissioner Barth?
David, this is anticipated in our Red Rock Corridor study, isn't it? I mean, this type of changes in that area.
Correct. This is located within the Red Rock Corridor Overlay District.
Anything else for David? All right, so this is a public hearing. If the applicants or proponents would like to speak, this is your opportunity. Is there anyone here that's opposed to this application? This would be your opportunity to speak if you're here opposed to this application. All right, seeing none. Looks like it's up to the commission. Commissioner Heiberger.
I still have an additional question then for David. David, you mentioned in the beginning, and there's an email in here about, one asking for it to be canceled, and then the property owner asking for it to go forward. I just want to make sure we're making the right, we're making a decision on this, and the property owner didn't say anything, so is the property owner here?
The property owner is here, and they can clarify on that. They can answer that.
Good morning. Thank you.
Good morning, Doug Odie, 205 Past Flower Trail, Brandon. Just to let you know, the property has been sold already. So actually I had, a week ago, the 30th of December, we sold the whole entire property. So I have no legal rights to it anymore.
So I'm just wondering, we can't go forward with this because he doesn't have a real, that's what I'm asking, is do we have any authority to go forward with rezoning this if he doesn't own it? So that's my question.
It's a good question. I'm curious whether somebody from Planning and Zoning has an answer to that good question.
I was unaware that Mr. Odie had sold the property at the end of a week ago or whatever, but I guess I will kick it back to the state's attorney's office and ask them. Because this is sort of an interesting situation, because when they applied, he was the owner, but subsequently has sold between the Planning Commission and, well, actually even the first reading. He was the owner back in December when we set the hearing date. Now is the second reading and final adoption. He is no longer, I don't know, I would defer, I guess, to the state's attorney's office.
Madam Chair?
Yes, thank you.
I walked into the meeting as well, anticipating that while the applicant had asked for withdrawing the application, that the property owner, Mr. Odie, I had understood, was still advocating for the change. So if there's a change of ownership, and if that change of ownership has been finalized, I don't think we have an applicant at this point, is the way it sounds to me.
I would have a hard time disagreeing with that, honestly. So then procedurally, if we don't have an applicant, do we need to vote to deny? Do we?
Based on what the state's attorney has indicated, I would recommend that we basically deny the request without prejudice, which would allow anyone to bring back another application. I think we're gonna have to start the process over again to rezone it. And the new property owner is gonna have to sign the application indicating they wanna move forward with the rezoning.
Commissioner Heiberger?
I would suggest, and I'm not legal, but that we would take no action, because I feel like by denying it, I think that we just take no action. If there's no motion and there's no second, there is no action. And I think that's cleaner than denying something that we shouldn't be doing in the first place.
Commissioner Karski?
I would like to see a week to make sure that we're doing the right thing, and my motion is going to be that we defer for 1 week. And the question then becomes, do things have to be reposted?
Well, Commissioner Karski, that is probably a prudent move, because that will give the state's attorney time to review it. And maybe the new property owner could just sign the application. I don't know. If the new property owner wants to move forward and have it rezoned, maybe that's an option too.
Madam Chair.
Commissioner Barth?
Scott, if we denied it, then they would have to wait 6 months to apply again, right?
Well, I think if you denied it without prejudice, basically
Right.
saying.
How much money is involved in that, in the
Well, the
application?
application for a rezoning is $350, and then there'd be some certified mailings that would have to go out.
To neighbors within 500 feet.
I'm not sure how many people that would be, 10, maybe another $50 and $50 to $100 in mailing costs.
This is all fascinating. If we took no action, or if we deferred it until next week, there'd be new publication requirement? No new publication requirements. Okay.
So I'll make a motion to defer for 1 week.
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. All right. Next item is item 18. It's to consider a resolution in support of the Wall Lake Trail project and the grant funding application submitted by the Friends of Wall Lake Trail for the purposes of constructing the trail. Good morning.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Tessa Schwantz, 26526 Lakeview Place, Hartford, South Dakota. I'm here today to, we came here, I think, a couple months ago, and we talked to you guys about potentially being the entity for the grant process for the Wall Lake Trail project. I know we have had a couple of months where we are trying to get organized as far as the actual Legacy Trail Committee and all of that. We have since started a nonprofit organization. It's called the Friends of Wall Lake Nonprofit Organization. It's a 501c3. We have $500 in our account. So we're hoping to, at some point, get some more public and private donations moving forward with that, so that we can hire infrastructure design group to get into the civil engineering aspect of figuring out the exact planning, zoning, infrastructure, engineering that would need to take place in order for the trail to even gain momentum and actually get to the point where we could even do some sort of construction. In order for us to hire infrastructure design group, we have to come up with at least $53,000 in order to get them on board so that we can figure out what all of those dynamics are within the infrastructure aspects. So with that, we're kind of in a position, we can't exactly apply for a grant yet until we have all that information. So once we get all the information, we're hoping that the county will then serve as the grant entity, which we had talked to you guys earlier about, so that we can proceed and hopefully get some grants that would help us out with the funding aspect of the trail. So that's why we're here. That's why you know, we're really hoping that the county would help us out with being the grant entity, just because we are not a municipality. We are not the Friends of Wall Lake 501c3. We don't feel is validated enough in order to be the entity on the grant. So that's where we were hoping that the county would step in and help us out with that.
Well, thank you for coming this morning. Are there questions?
Just, if I might.
Sure, Commissioner
Just to
Benega.
clarify, have you received an IRS certification on your 501c3, or have you just applied?
Jeff Beck, who is the lawyer working with our committee, the Friends of Wall Lake, he has submitted everything that needs to be done through the state, and he's working on that. And yes, we do have a lot of that information. I don't have it with me, but Jeff does have that. And it's
But
just,
you do have the IRS certification that says you are approved?
yes.
Okay.
Yep. In fact, we're just at the point where we're starting to get the bank account kind of lined up with all of that. And I think those are some of the important papers that you need to even get it validified through even having an account set up with that. So,
Okay.
yeah.
Any other questions? Commissioner Heiberger.
I just have a comment if
Okay.
we're done with questions. I'm fully supportive of this. I think it's great. It's forward-thinking, and it's great to have citizens that get together and bond together and make it work. I live rural South Dakota or rural Minnehaha County, and so I can see myself using this when I retire from this job and have time to bike again. I do have one comment that I would like us to discuss at a commission, and that is that I would propose that we strike the line that is, and be it further resolved that the commission consent to consider future budget requests by the Friends of the Wall Lake Trail for financial contributions and projects for the annual maintenance of the trail. Not because that's a bad statement, but because we don't have any other nonprofit that we have a resolution with that would specify that in there. We have an application process, and it would be up to this group to apply to every year, because I feel like putting this in here, if you guys forgot to apply one year, that would make us responsible to put it on our schedule. I don't think that that's our responsibility. We are more than welcome to take your applications and consider them as we go through nonprofits. I just feel like this one line doesn't belong in the resolution because we don't have it with anyone else.
Okay, I
So-
understand.
That's my
Yeah.
comment.
Is that a motion?
I would make
I don't always agree with my commissioner colleague over there, and I don't on this one, because I might consider buying her a car, but doesn't mean I'm gonna.
Okay.
So I think considering it is nothing.
Commissioner Benega.
I have a question for staff, and I'm not sure who's going to answer this, but is this grant request going to be coming from our park and rec line item through the general fund, or is because of the use of the trail, is that going to be a highway fund issue?
Well, Scott Anderson again, County Planning and Parks. I guess I'm not sure if I can answer that, because I think each grant is gonna be, potentially, well, certainly unique and individual. It more than likely is gonna be run through the auditor's office. They'll do all the monitoring. Which line item it would go through, it more than likely would, I would suppose, be put in the Parks Department budget, but that would be, I think, a discussion that you as a commission could have on which budget you want to put it in for oversight.
If I might continue, I think there's much more restrictions in the highway department than the general fund, and frankly, I'm not sure which one it's gonna fit in. They're two separate total business packages, if you will, so it's important that I think we have that clarified.
Chairperson?
Yes, sorry.
Carol Muller, Commission Office. We've done these grants before. They're never assigned to any department because they're in and out. So we just finished one with Southeast Tech, which went through CCOG, and we were the agent of record on that one. That one actually we became the agent of record before I came here, so I'm not quite sure how that process all started. You may recall what you may remember hearing is it was extended twice, and that we brought before you. But they're never, because they're dollars in, they're dollars out, we've never had them assigned to any department, and you could certainly assign this project to a department.
I guess my question is more about not supporting the grants because that isn't a financial concern for ours. There's comments in here about future budget requests and where we would support those budget requests if in fact that was going to a particular project with whatever the long-range plan happens to be.
Yeah, and that would be the commission's decision as you move through the budgeting process. If you did want to put that in, right now, the outside agencies are not assigned to any particular department, but this certainly could be. And I know that Tessa has had good conversations with both Highway Department and Parks Department going through this process.
Yep.
Knowing that that's a critical part, especially as you get into writing the grants.
Right, exactly.
Else?
Not right now.
Commissioner Heiberger.
I would, with that in mind, I would make that motion that we would approve this resolution but striking that last line, be it resolved, because I feel like we still have the opportunity to support them as they need necessary, and it gives us the flexibility of making sure we do it right.
I'll second Commissioner Heiberger's motion.
Thank you.
I was just gonna.
Oh, others,
Sure.
Please.
I'm Peggy Bevere. I live at 46271 Wall Lake Place, which is on the east side of Wall Lake. And I'm here in question of these Wall Lake trails. We really don't know who the Friends of Wall Lake are, because if you look at my report, 47 individuals, homes that live on Wall Lake are not in favor of these trails. And so they have not been asked if they want the trails. They've not been involved in any of the meetings. We've had one meeting, which was October 28th of 2019. And at that meeting, we thought we were going to the meeting to say, yes, we support the trails, or no, we don't. Well, basically, the meeting was to say, this is what we've done so far. We're looking for grants. We worked with the County Parks District. We worked with different people. But none of the residents on Wall Lake were asked, do you want these trails around the lake? The other thing is, if you look at the east side of Wall Lake, there is no space on the side of the road to put a trail, which means that you're gonna have to go into individuals' properties in order to get the trails in. And if you look at the east side of the lake, that's a waterway for Skunk Creek. Those ditches are constantly full of water. We have a couple of residents that actually live on the east side of Wall Lake that pump their basements into that ditch that runs all the way from the Wall Lake gas station all the way down to the beach road. Out of the votes that I've gotten so far, unfortunately, I haven't been able to get to every resident on Wall Lake. I just mailed some of the letters out on Sunday, and those are to the residents up on the north end of Wall Lake. There's some new homes up there, and I didn't realize that they had locked mailboxes, so I had to actually mail them the letter, so I don't have responses back from those 9 homes. But out of the 10 yes votes that I did get sent to me, if you look on the back of the handout that I gave you, there were stipulations to those yes votes. One was no cost to the Wall Lake residents. They would vote yes if the plans for construction, maintenance, policing, cleanup, additional parking are all funded by grants donations, and fundraising. Another yes vote was 0 cost to the Wall Lake residents, parking needs to be addressed. Another comment was yes, only if the plans for continued maintenance, parking, and garbage removal are in place by the county. The fourth one is they want to start at the park, not start at Highway 42. The trails on the south side of the road around the beach to the gravel road. And if you look at the plans that were submitted, they were going to put the trails actually on the north side along the beach area, which would involve all of those new homes that are sitting on the lake area. The other comment was we need open discussion of the pros and cons before we proceed, more information on construction and design prior to proceeding, because people feel that living on Wall Lake, we have not had any opportunity for comment. We've had that one meeting that we were invited to. And then another comment was to consult the individuals who built the Hartford bike trails on Highway 38. I had 2 cards that were returned with no name and no address, so I did not count those in my totals that I gave you because I don't know where they live. And in visiting several of the residents that live on Wall Lake, they feel that if Minnehaha County commissioners want to do something for the Wall Lake residents, maybe there should be more involvement in our sewer system out there. Get a centralized sewer system that the county supports and maintains if we're going to spend a lot of money. Or road maintenance. Most of us have no road maintenance out there by the county. No snow removal, no road maintenance, no new gravel. It's all up to the homeowners. The other thing they feel is clean up the lake, remove the algae. Why aren't we dredging the lake if the county wants to get involved in some additional things for the Wall Lake residents? Garbage removal at the beach. Many of the residents that live on the beach side, they're tired of the garbage on the beach. They feel that maybe the county should support somebody cleaning up that beach every night, walking, because the residents are doing it now. And adequate parking for the beach crowd. When that parking lot gets full, those individuals are parking down the gravel road, blocking the farmers to the east, trying to get out of their driveways. They're parking where there's no parking signs. And I know there's been several calls there to the beach for fights and more policing out there. So if we add additional bike trails, how many more people are we going to get out there? And how many more problems are we going to have with garbage removal and parking and policing? And so, like I said, the majority of the residents, 47 residents that live on that lake, have voted no. They do not want that Wall Lake Trail around their homes and around that area. I did have the opportunity this morning to talk to Norduff, who is the primary landowner on the west side of the lake and on the north side. And he said, yes, last week was the first time he heard anything about this Wall Lake project. And he happened to find out because I had talked to Lowell Grave, who actually farms all that farmland around that area. And Lowell Grave said he knew nothing about it, so he called Norduff and told him about it. He lives in the Black Hills now, and he said he has no information about anybody putting a bike trail around all of his farmland. And he'll be back next week in town. So we feel there's been no opportunity for any of the Wall Lake residents to voice an opinion, whether they want the bike trails or whether they don't want the bike trails. And we're all kind of like, who are friends of Wall Lake? Who did you poll? Who did you ask if you want these bike trails? The residents out there have no idea who these people are and why this is going forward when it's going to directly affect the property owners that sit around the Wall Lake area. That's it.
So can you explain to us how you did this voting? How did you collect these votes?
What I did is I started going door to door. That's the first thing I did, which was almost an impossible task because half of the people weren't at home when I did knock on their door. So then I actually sent out postcards. And on the postcards, I put, are you in favor of the Wall Lake bike trails? No. If you are in favor, yes. Do you have any stipulations as to, what you would like to see done before the bike trails go in? Or just plain, yes, I'm in favor of the bike trails. And I had those postcards mailed back to me. When I got up to the north end of the lake, as I said, I put them in mailboxes, everybody's mailbox. So everybody that had a mailbox on Wall Lake got them. When I got to the north end of Wall Lake, many of the residents, the new homes that are sit way up on the north end, which are Lakeview, have locked boxes, so I couldn't put anything in their mailboxes. So on Sunday, I actually mailed them letters asking the same questions. Are you in favor of the trails? Yes. Are you in favor of the trails? Yes, but you have these stipulations if the trails go in, or no, I do not want the trails. I believe there's like 9 residents up there in the new homes, and I have not gotten those back because, of course, I just mailed them on Sunday, so I don't have those back yet. But they were actual cards, postcards, or letters put in every single resident's mailboxes that live around that entire lake. And I also did Highway 42, because the bike trails are going to come down Highway 42. So I did the individuals on the north side and on the south side of the road. And on the west side of Wall Lake, there's a couple people that built new homes that sit on the west side of the lake, so I also gave them postcards. So I pretty well covered the whole lake area. And then from the beach area, I went down east, because that's where they have a lot of parking problems with people overflow from the beach on the gravel. And so I did get 3 of the homes down east on that road, asking about, what are your feelings about a Wall Lake bike trail and additional people coming out to the Wall Lake area. And all of those individuals basically said no. They're tired of the garbage in their ditches, they're tired of the parking problems, and they're tired of actually 10 o'clock at night, people speeding down the roads coming off the beach area. That's some of the comments I got from those people. So I either visited them individually, sent them postcards, or sent them letters, and then received those all back in the mail. And I do have those with me if you want to see each individual response.
All right, any questions? Is there anyone else here today who wanted to speak on this issue? If you go ahead and come forward if you want. Yeah, just take turns, please.
My name is Bill Huffman, and I live on West Shore Place, 46270. My main concerns are restrooms, parking, and particularly the restrooms, because the public ones are closed 6 months out of the year. Park, we close them down. So that leaves Wall Lake Oil to provide any restrooms that might be, and they sure don't want people using their restrooms all the time if they're not there for business. And the other one is an outdoor potty on the west side, where the environmental for the birds and sanctuary and stuff is. And quite frankly, I don't, nobody that, where this route is, has really been contacted personally on their feelings and how it's going to be maintained in the future and what it's going to cost. Is it big concrete, asphalt, and who's going to take care of it and the mess?
Thank you. I think there's one other gentleman that would like to speak.
Sorry, if I could address all of those.
Does that gentleman not want to speak? I'd like to let everybody have a chance to speak.
Go ahead. Tessa's going to speak for the organization.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Okay.
John Merrill, 46230 266th Street. We live adjacent to the boat ramp. So I have safety concerns, first of all. You're in a rural community, agriculture. We have farmers that are continually up and down the roads along the beach to the east of the east side going to Wall Lake Oil daily. And that happens year-round. The lady already addressed the water ditch that goes from Wall Lake Oil south to the beach road. It's not real wide there already. We also have a lot of drinking and driving in the summer, tons of it. They come out with their boats or anything else. It's already unsafe. You guys last year wanted a roundabout at the intersection of 42 and that county road because it was unsafe. Now you want to put a bike path next to it. Makes no sense. Parking, where's the parking going to go? Bathroom facilities, as Bill said. Garbage along adjacent properties. Already have to pick up garbage during the summer. They just toss it out their windows. Problem, and now we're going to make more. So you have basically a county park. Bike trails in Sioux Falls and up in Hartford. You want to do a bike trail, do it around Family Park. Impact on those who want it. Are they getting paid out of this $4 million that they want to spend? Who's getting paid? Because I find a conflict of interest right away. Because they live on the north side, they want it. None of the trail, none of the parking, none of the garbage, none of the bathrooms or anywhere near their houses. It's everybody else's problem. It's because it's not in their front yard. Management fees, once it gets going, who's getting paid on that one? So I find it a conflict of interest for the people that are wanting it. And I just a little bit paranoid what's in it for them. So biggest concern is safety and all the drugs that were happening last summer on the beach area. I just think there's a better place to spend the money. Thanks.
Okay. So, I'm confused as to which one of you is going to speak, but I'm going to let one of you speak one more time, and then I think we're going to wrap it up.
Okay, just to address some of those issues. As far as a Wall Lake resident myself, I know that they have a lot of concerns and they're validated, which was why we wanted to start the process of having communication and talking and doing public forums. We did send out 214 letters to address a public forum that we had in Hartford, and I don't know how many showed up. I have a number on some of my sheets. I think there was like maybe 30 to 40 people that showed up, but they all did receive flyers within Wall Lake and within a 1 mile radius. I understand the concerns, and we do, as residents ourselves, understand what it would look like moving forward, which is why we wanted to start a conversation and get people talking about some of these issues, which is why we created a committee, a steering committee, a nonprofit. And as far as what's in it for us, there's nothing. There's nothing in it for us. We have taken no money. We've taken no pay. We've been working on this for 2 years. So we really don't have anything that we are really asking for, as far as it's all been donated time. So I just wanted to reiterate that. I don't know if Jada Lang, who is also a Wall Lake resident, would like to come up and say something as well. He was a former director in Watertown for the city parks and rec, and I know he has some information too that maybe he would like to share, if that's okay. If not, it's okay.
If he wants to come forward, that'll be fine.
Okay.
Hi.
Good morning. I'm J.D. Lang, 46244 West Shore Place, Hartford, South Dakota. And I became involved, I recently retired from a career in Parks and Recreation. I've spent the last 5 years as director of the Watertown Parks, Recreation, and Forestry Department. And before I ever moved to Wall Lake, I was contacted by Tessa and just asked some questions on trail work that I have done in the past. And so she did not know at that time that I was becoming a resident of Wall Lake, but you know, trails can be very controversial, and there's a lot of things to work out, and we need to get together as a Wall Lake community and work these things out. But you know, in my experience, and I've worked in all kinds of motorized, non-motorized, many different types of trails, and you know, once done, heavily used, very much appreciated by the people. I finished my career in Watertown trying to complete the loop around Lake Compeska. There was about 3.5 miles left to go, and yes, there was controversy, but it is going to work out, and it's all road right away. And I know one comment that was made, and I think the Wall Lake group is very cognizant of that they do not want to bother any of the residents. And I know it was said that on the south side that the trail would be on the north side on the interior. And that would be, we try and move that around to the south side of that south road, so we keep it away from the residents as much as possible.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Turn it over to the commissioners. Commissioner Karski.
Appreciate everybody's comments and input on this. Obviously, there's a lot of passion about how people feel. It's interesting. I didn't receive anything against this until just today, and I kind of find that somewhat fascinating. I guess I want to give some reassurance that we're not approving the construction of a bike trail around Wall Lake. We're approving nonprofit the ability to move forward so they can start this discussion, so that they can talk to everybody, so that we can get input, so that your concerns are addressed, whether it be traffic or garbage or bathrooms or whatever. We have to, there's people with a vision, they think it's a great idea, they want to share it with the rest of the community, and I think this is a good way to move forward with this whole process. You know, we can be against anything anywhere, or we can start talking about how to do it right. The young people of our community especially look for these types of amenities when it comes to where they're going to live and how they're going to use them. This is building or looking forward to the future. Will it happen? It may, and it may not. But this doesn't give approval for a bike trail around Wall Lake by any means. It just gives the ability for this nonprofit to engage everybody in this conversation. So that's all we're looking for.
It's opportunity for the commission to talk right now. Thank you. You had your chance. Thank you.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
This is actually a pretty normal type discussion for a planning and zoning issue. And I think oftentimes people have certainly legitimate concerns, but they are sometimes more fear than anything else. And, you know, I rarely see bicyclists driving around with a case of Bud Light on the back of their bike, throwing cans and stuff. And at the same time, I understand that the beach is a bit of an issue, but it's free. And there are a lot of citizens that can't afford to, you know, go to California or Florida. And I also have noticed with planning and zoning that despite the fears that people have, after the project is accomplished, it's very, it's not the burden that people imagined it to be. And I've said this many times, you know, it's not zoned museum. Do we want to control things in a positive manner, or are we going to wait till, you know, they build a high-rise apartment on the beach? We don't know what's going to happen, but it's not zoned museum. Things are going to change. This is an opportunity to guide that change. Sioux Falls will encompass this area by the end of this century, and that this may be the last time we have a chance to put in this kind of amenity.
Any other comments? Well, I think I would reiterate Commissioner Karski's comments that really, I mean, this was not our idea. We aren't bringing this forward. This group is bringing it to us. They're simply asking the county to act as a conduit for funding if they are fortunate enough to obtain some grant funding. And I think that's the only issue that's really before us right now. I think obviously, as in any issue, there's an opportunity to improve communication. And, you know, I would say the same as Commissioner Karski. I don't think any of us really had any idea that there was opposition to this. I had not heard from any commissioner that they had been contacted about this issue. But that's not to say that we aren't all individual property owners here with individual property owner rights, and that this is not, it's not even barely the beginning of a process or a conversation, regardless of what we did with this resolution today. But that said, I guess I would look forward, I would look for.
We have a motion.
Oh, we did have a motion. Okay, I apologize, I got lost. So we had a motion and a second. All right, roll call vote, please.
Benega. Aye. Heiberger.
Aye.
Karski.
Aye.
Barth.
Aye.
Bender.
Aye. Motion passes unanimously. I would urge the group and the community out there to continue conversations and keep each other informed of your viewpoints. Thank you. All right, so that takes us to item 19, which is to consider a resolution to approve the voting precinct polling locations for 2020. Auditor Litz, good morning.
Good morning, Commission. Bob Litz from the Auditor's Office. And
Madam
this
Chair,
morning I
shall
have
we
a
pause a moment? Let the crowd disperse.
We can for a second. We don't want to miss an important word that you might say. Thank you all for coming this morning. Okay.
It's got a compliment on my tie.
Not a Viking fan, I take
It's
it.
definitely worth the pause then.
Excuse me, I put my glasses on here. I'm OBG, which stands for Old Blind Guy now, so. I have a couple of things here. Two of them need action, and then one of them just informational. The first item that I have up here are the 2020 polling locations in Minnehaha County for the 2020 election cycle. And this year, we had 5 new precincts. We had to get 5 new precincts due to changing circumstances with businesses, ownership, board decisions and stuff like that. The American Legion was one of them. We had the auditorium up at the old school for the deaf. We had to find a new place for that. The VFW down there, we had to find a new place for that. O'Gorman, a longtime precinct, decided not to do it anymore. I'm the First Christian Reformed Church on 26th Street. When we do these precincts, we work with the city. They're our partners, so Tom Greco and I go out and about and check them for appropriateness, for space, for ease of access, and ADA issues. We've got a total of 75 precincts with 68 locations, plus 1 absentee here. Every election cycle will bring this up. And so today, the action that I'm requesting is that you approve the resolution establishing the record of 2020 Minnehaha County designated polling places. I'm available for questions on these.
Any questions for Auditor Litz?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any other comments?
Madam Chair?
Commissioner Barth?
Bob, are people going to be informed as to?
Yes, we send out a card. The city will send out a card to all the voters in those precincts that are changing, and then I'll also send out a card for each one of my elections. So they'll have 3 things in the mail. We'll publicize it as much as we can, get the precincts out there. So yes, they are directly notified. So.
Comments or questions? A motion and a second. Roll call vote, please.
Hiberger,
Aye.
Karski,
Aye.
Barth,
Aye.
Benega,
Aye.
Bender.
Aye. Motion passes unanimously.
Very good. The second thing was just sort of a notification for you folks, and just for informational purposes only. The notice of deadline for filing nomination petitions for the primary election and for filing independent candidate petitions. We do this every election cycle. There was quite a bit of time spent out the Secretary of State's office this year, the last year. Because it was tied up in a court thing. But we publish this every election cycle. And the newspaper people that were here like it because it's a longer article. It's spendy. And like I say, it was just notable this year because of all the legal changes that Secretary of State's office made to it. That doesn't take any action. The final item that I'd like you to talk about here is the annual review and resolution of election workers' rates of pay. And what I'm requesting is that the rates of pay for election workers be set in 2020. It is actually going to be the same as 2018, and I do not anticipate any more increases until 2022. That puts us on par with our past 4-year cycles of looking at raises. I'm requesting the rates of pay and compensation for the 2020 election cycle as follows. First, the precinct superintendent is paid $180 per election, which works out to about $15 an hour. Number 2, the precinct deputies are paid $150 per election, which is about $12.50 per hour. Number 3, the absentee precinct, counting center, and precinct assistants are paid $12 per hour. The precinct setups, and that's happens the day before the election on the Monday. People go out and spend a couple hours at their precinct setting things up, so it's not so compressed in the next morning when they get there. But we're setting a flat rate of $15 per session for doing that. After the election is over, we have to restore that place to the condition that it was in when we got there. And so we call that the tear down. And so some people that are from the precinct will stay there and get another $15 for putting that place, putting tables away, cleaning up, any lunch things that are going on, just tidying the place back up as we left it. The 6th thing is that a $10 stipend be paid per precinct for the use of personal cell phone, usually the superintendents, when they call down here. The landlines are becoming less and less available. A lot of times on election day, which is on a Tuesday, if there is a landline at a church or something, there might not be anybody there and it's locked up in an office. So to have that cell phone, and take care of somebody for the use of that cell phone is an important thing. Election school, I hold a dozen sessions of election school in 1 week. And I'd like to, the election school attendees be paid $15 per session. The eighth and final thing is all precinct rentals be set at $100 per election. Gaining usage of other entities' facilities for elections is increasingly difficult. This year we had to find 5 new ones. We spoke about that. On election day, people in and out affects the air quality, tracks in dirt, usually requires somebody to come in early, a.m. and later in the evening to unlock and lock the facility. The stipend helps offset those costs. The action requested today is to approve the resolution of rates of pay and facility rentals for the 2020 election cycle.
Cool.
Yes, it is.
Any comments or questions?
Will you have more employees this year than last year then with the changes in precincts? Or election workers?
Well, I still have 71 precincts. There'll be 66 locations, so we'll have for the primary approximately 3 people for each one of them, and then for the general election I'll have 5 or more people. And then upstairs here for the absentee precinct, people opening the envelopes, usually the primary takes about between 35 and 40 people, and then the general election will take I usually have 88 people in this room and the next room opening absentee ballots all day. That does not also count for the people that are down in my office doing the absentee ballot work. And then at nighttime, we have to hire resolution boards and a whole new crew over there. We move everybody over there to handle and process ballots. So, last year, I can't say last year, but in the 2018 cycle, we had just under 500 people working the general election. Now, we bring them all together. We train when we can. We've got a lot of experience out there, but we do get new people. I'd like to point out that 500 people are gathering for one function. What could possibly go wrong there? But we put together a collection of people that's bigger than a lot of small towns in South Dakota for one night for one purpose. So it's quite a feat in my eyes to have all those people come together for that function. So will I hire more? We'll have to wait and see how that absentee ballot turnout winds up looking like, and that would kind of be an indicator of how many ballots are going to come out on election day for the election. So the answer is I'll wait and see.
Commissioner Benniga.
Well, I support Bob's, point of view on this. It's extremely important that the election process be as clean and, less irritable as possible to the people who are working. And frankly, watching those people come in early in the morning and staying late in the evening and all the things that they do during the day, and then making sure that the election counts are correctly done. It's important for us to support that group because that pool of volunteers, so to speak, and workers is getting much smaller every year. And I think if we don't meet some of their expectations and their commitment, we should definitely support what he's pursuing.
Madam Chair.
Commissioner Barth.
Bob, it's the same way every year, but I wish we had more public buildings being used instead of churches. I know that many of the churches have restrictions on what can be displayed at their polling locations. Meanwhile, other locations don't. And I understand that the school district doesn't want people coming into schools, but it seems to me like that should be changed, and we should let public buildings be used ahead of religious infrastructure.
Well, I've heard that argument before too, but on Tuesday, election day, there's no proselytizing goes on in those churches. You might see a cross or something, but that's just the way it goes. As far as having public buildings, there simply aren't enough of them around. And out of the ones that are around, you have to look at the feasibility of actually being able to use that, for a polling place, ADA considerations, and then there's a statute that says they also want that polling location inside the precinct boundaries, which makes another degree of difficulty. And we've got a couple of them that are right on the boundaries and a couple of them that are out on the outside of the boundaries of that precinct because there was simply no place to put it. Pettigrew School out there is bound by Sertoma, 41st Street, and I think 57th Street on the other side, and then the T. Ellis Road. And it's all houses with a school. There is absolutely no place to put a precinct out there. So I wound up putting it at the at the wellness center, off the TLS Wellness Center out there. Had to do it, so. I wish there were more public buildings. It'd be a lot easier for me to do that, but it's simply not there.
Okay, and just to be clear, right now, what we're considering is a resolution to set the election workers' pay for 2020.
Motion to approve the pay schedule.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any other comments? If not, roll call vote, please.
Karski,
Aye.
Barth, Benega,
Aye.
Highberger, Bender.
Aye, motion passes unanimously.
Thank you, Commission.
Thank you. So that takes us to item 22, which is to consider a motion to appoint candidates Jerry Beckler and Roger Buchler to a 3-year term on the Sioux Land Heritage Museum Board. I apologize if I butchered either of those names.
I think you did a good job.
All right, thank you.
Bill Hoskins, Director of the Siouxland Heritage Museums. Commissioners, the Siouxland Heritage Museums Board was set up through the Joint Cooperative Agreement in 1974. There are 11 members. The County Commission appoints 4 citizen members of the board. We have 2 vacancies, and the positions have been advertised through the commission office and through the museum's newsletter. And we had 2 applicants. Jerry Beckler, a former school teacher who's served on other community boards. Roger Buechler, who's worked with the National Guard in the banking and marketing industry, who's also had board experience in the community as well. I think both would be good candidates. And it is for a 3-year term on the museum board.
Any comments or questions, Commissioner Karski?
You had 2 applicants for the 2 positions?
Yes.
Okay, I didn't know. They seem to be very, very qualified applicants and appreciate their interest. I didn't know if we had half a dozen and you vet them down to 2 or how that process worked. If they know Bill, do they get the job? You know, doesn't work that way.
At this time.
Commissioner Heiberger.
I don't know both of them, but I do know Jerry Beckler. I've known him for over 40 years, so he'd be a great candidate for this. And with that, I would make a motion to approve both of them for the board.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any other comments? If not, roll call vote, please.
Barth,
Aye.
Benega, Highberger,
Aye.
Karski,
Aye.
Bender.
Aye, motion passes unanimously. Thank you to both of those gentlemen for their willingness to serve. So that takes us to item 23, which is consider a motion to appoint 2 candidates to a 5-year term on the Planning Commission. Scott Anderson.
Thank you, Scott, Planning Department again. And we had 2 planning commissioners' terms who expired. Their terms expired in 2019, and I worked with the commission office, and we published a hearing notice in the local papers and solicited interest from the community, anyone that would like to serve. We received 3 applications for 2 positions, and those names of those that have applied were Doug Odie and Ryan Vanderbleet. They are the existing planning commissioners and are seeking reappointment. And then we had a 3rd person that expressed interest, who is a community member, Daniel Glameyer. And I contacted all of them and either talked to them in person or left messages on their voicemails indicating that there'd be consideration today in front of the county commission, and invited them to attend if they so desired. And Doug Odie is here, and I'd be glad to answer any questions, but I would ask that you appoint 2 of those of the 3 that applied to a 5-year term as a planning commissioner.
All right, well, thank you.
Madam Chair.
Yes, Commissioner
Obviously,
Park.
I know the 2 incumbents.
Mr. Glameyer is here as well. I had never met him, but I did leave a message, and he's here.
Okay, thank you.
We should probably have him say something unless he doesn't want to.
Yeah.
Because I don't know him at all.
I think any of the candidates that are here, the applicants, if you'd like to come forward and tell us a little bit about yourself, this would be your opportunity. Good morning.
An address, Daniel Glameyer, 25474 475th Avenue in Baltic. I guess I'm currently a builder. I own Glameyer Enterprises, also known by Glameyer Homes here in Sioux Falls. So for about the past 5 years, I've been building homes in Sioux Falls and all throughout the surrounding area, a lot in Minnehaha County and a lot in Lincoln County. And so that background is what piques my interest in joining the planning and zoning. commission. Prior to being in building houses, believe it or not, I was actually in banking. I spent 13 years in banking. I was an assistant vice president and ultimately a vice president of TCF Bank when they were here for their very short stint here in Sioux Falls. I did leave TCF shortly before they kind of hauled off everything out of Sioux Falls and started building houses full time. I absolutely love it. And my time has become a little more open as I've gotten older. My kids have gotten older, and it's just a good opportunity to get more involved, and so that's why I started reaching out, and I'm becoming more involved in the Home Builders Association, and I thought, I really want to give back more to the community that's helped me build such a great business because of the opportunity you've created, and so that's I thought, hey, maybe I can bring some of my experience in what I do and some of my background in banking and housing and developing to this commission. And so that's why I applied.
All right, thank you very much. Thank you for coming this morning. Good morning.
Good morning. Doug Odie, 205 Pascflower Trail, Brandon. I have been a lifetime resident of Minnehaha County. Split Rock Township is where our farm is. I think it's important that that we do have a voice in the southeast corner of the county. It's a big growth area, but there is still a lot of agriculture that goes on out there, and everybody needs to have a voice. And I know when we have stuff that comes up on the agenda, I know many things can be very emotional for the people that are seeking to have a plan approved, but we all have to sit back and take a good look and see if it all fits well. And the first 5 years, I can honestly say that probably 2.5 years of that, to me personally, was a learning experience. You don't know what you should say or shouldn't say, how people are going to judge you, but the last, especially 1.5 years, I've become very comfortable on the board, and I've appreciated the opportunity to be on there. And this is just a great area to live in. The county's great. Most people are great, but there's a lot of emotion that goes in with when you have to vote on a very touchy issue. So if you would want to vote me back in, I'd greatly appreciate it. I've enjoyed serving the county. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. And I'm assuming Ryan is not here.
Madam Chair, if
Commissioner
I might
Barth.
comment on Ryan, he's been on there for a few years now. How many years? Just 2 years. And I would say, just as Doug expressed, he's still in the process of getting his feet completely underneath him. But he farms with his family west of Colton, I believe, and is in the animal business, right? I think so, yeah. And his family's been there forever. So he's slowly being more of a participant. Doug is a full participant now, and he and I disagree now and then. But it does take a little bit to get accustomed to the processes. And I'm very glad that Mr. Glanmeyer put his name in on this. And I hope, maybe in 3 years he'll run for my position. But we need citizens to serve on these boards. It's good to have more than 2 applicants for 2 spots, and I will say that with apologies, I'm going to support the incumbents, and that'll be my motion.
Okay, so we have a motion in support of the 2 incumbents, Doug Odie and Ryan Vandervliet.
Yes.
Is there a second?
I'll make a second with a comment.
Okay,
I
Commissioner
too
Heiberger.
would thank you very much for coming. And I think you bring a wealth of information that would be beneficial to us at some place, and I hope that you just don't go away and don't come back. So I hope you keep your eyes open, and there will be an opening on this or another board. And I thank you greatly for sticking around in our kind of long morning and giving us your comments and your background. I appreciate that.
Commissioner Karski?
I'm going to support the incumbents too. A quick question: is there term limits to this board? Okay, because Jeff's been there a long time. So.
I think Wayne Steinhauer was there for over 20 years.
Okay, okay. And this board does a tremendous amount of heavy lifting for, the planning board does a lot of heavy lifting for this board, the commission. And so much appreciate what you do, and you guys are looking at our rural citizens for almost exclusively with what you do. So appreciate your work and efforts there, and I will support the incumbents.
All right. Anything else? So we have a motion and a second. Roll call vote, please.
Benega.
Aye.
Hiberger.
Aye.
Karski.
Aye.
Barth.
Aye.
Bender.
Aye. Motion passes unanimously. Thanks to all of you. That takes us to item 24, which is to authorize the chairperson to sign the 2020 IBC housing contract between Minnehaha County and Carroll Institute. Carrie Benz, good morning.
Good morning. Good morning, Commission. Carrie Benz, Human Services. So before you is a contract that you are well acquainted with. It's the contract for our housing agreement with Carroll Institute and their New Horizons program, which is basically their low-intensity, short-term residential program that the county has utilized in conjunction with our detox unit to shortly and temporarily house individuals that are waiting for court-ordered treatment. And so this contract, if you're agreeable, would begin today and run through 2020. The significant difference from for this contract compared to last year is we have typically reserved, we started out at 4 beds when we started in this agreement back in 2012. However, over the course of time, through process change, through placement change, and availability, we now this year are looking to have just a flat rate of $78.54 per day per bed if we need that bed. And so there aren't any beds that we are just automatically paying for on an ongoing basis for the year, even if they're not filled. So in 2019, our average bed usage was 0.4. So obviously our need for those services has diminished. And so we're hopeful that even if we used the beds at the rate that we did in 2019, we'd only be expending just a little over $13,000 versus going for a whole contractual amount. So we would hope to save roughly about $43,000. And so in signing the agreement in this contract today, it would allow us to continue to utilize New Horizons as a temporary placement for those individuals that are on an involuntary commitment awaiting treatment if the need arises where we would need room and detox. So if you have questions, I'll be happy to answer those.
Any questions for Carrie this morning?
Make a motion to approve.
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Thank you so much for your management of that program. Thank you. All right, so that takes us to item 25, which is a brief from Lutheran Social Services on the state involvement in refugee resettlement. Betty Oldenkamp and Rebecca, good morning.
Good morning, Commissioners. Betty Oldenkamp. I am the CEO for Lutheran Social Services. Our administrative offices are at 705 East 41st Street here in Sioux Falls. I have with me Rebecca Kiesel-Knudsen, our Vice President for Community Services, and also Tim Juergens, our Director for the Center for New Americans, is with us as well. We appreciate the opportunity to be before you this morning. Our purpose in coming is to request that the Minnehaha County Commission provide written consent to continue initial refugee resettlement in Minnehaha County. LSS is bringing this request to you as we are the designated agency for refugee resettlement in South Dakota. LSS has served in this capacity since 2000, when the state of South Dakota made the decision to transfer the administrative and direct service responsibilities for resettlement to LSS. Our briefing this morning is to provide you with the background and information to inform your decision regarding consent for continued resettlement. We have provided some resource documents for you, and then we also have a slide deck that is the overview that Rebecca will walk us through. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning, members of the Commission.
So we're just going to set some groundwork for you all just to make sure that everyone's clear on what we're talking about this morning. It's really important as we talk about refugees to understand who we're talking about. There's a lot of conversation and dialogue nationally about immigration in our country, and so we just need to lay that firm foundation. We always like to start this conversation by saying that all refugees are immigrants, but not all immigrants are refugees. Being a refugee is actually an international definition, and so refugees just by definition are unable to return to their home country as a result of a well-founded fear of being persecuted for reasons of race, religion, nationality, or membership in a particular social group or political opinion. All refugees who arrive in the United States have legal status and are eligible to work upon arrival. And then there's another term, secondary migrants. Secondary migrants are individuals who have been resettled as refugees and have moved from one state to another state or one community to another community. So to become a refugee, in order to become a refugee, you have to flee your home country, and you're fleeing your home country as a result of that fear of safety for your life. Once you flee, you would register with the United Nations High Council on Refugees and eventually request resettlement. It's important to note that most refugees who are in resettlement camps are not resettled into host countries like the United States, and that the United States is one of 30 countries that accepts refugees. Another really important thing to remember about refugees is that they're highly vetted. In fact, they're probably the most highly vetted immigrant status into our country. The entire process for screening refugees takes between 18 months and 2 years, involves a whole host of federal agencies, and is always being reviewed at the federal level to make sure that it's sound and that we're getting what we expect from the individuals who are resettled. The resettlement program is primarily a federal program, and so most of the resources that go to support this program come from the federal level. It's the President of the United States who determines what that national determination is, what they call it, in terms of the number of refugees who the United States will accept. So in fiscal year 20, which is the federal fiscal year that just started, the President has set that determination at 18,000 individuals. The way that the structure of the program works is that the U.S. State Department then contracts with 9 national voluntary organizations, or VOLAGs, to help with the work of resettlement that occurs within that first 90 days upon arrival. So LSS of South Dakota, we subcontract with Lutheran Immigration and Refugee Services at that federal level, which is one of those 9 national VOLAGs. The Refugee Resettlement Program is an early self-sufficiency program, so really the work that we're doing is to help individuals become self-sufficient as quickly as possible. So we're working on employment and on or before 8 months, because that's when the assistance at that federal level ends, and then English language acquisition for those who don't come to the United States with English language is a big focus. And then I will say that most of the resettlement that's happening currently is family reunification. So those are individuals who are reuniting with family members here in South Dakota. Every year, there's a process that's called the abstract process. This is the process by which we are really reviewing our local capacity for resettlement. We're looking at our outcomes. We're trying to determine how successful individuals are being at integrating into our home communities. And then we're in dialogue with our National Resettlement Organization to determine how many individuals we think we can host here locally. We have an advisory board that meets monthly. That advisory board is comprised of individuals who would interact with refugees in our community. So that would be law enforcement, schools, social services, county government, city government. And that group meets to review the abstract, also meets to have any dialogue that there might need to be about individual cases that may come up throughout the year. There are a couple of charts that we want to share with you today. This is a 10-year history of resettlement at the federal level. So this tells you how many refugees have arrived in the United States as a whole. As you can see, as you move toward 2019, the trend is that the numbers of individuals who are being accepted into the United States is decreasing under the current administration. This next slide shows arrivals into South Dakota directly. And again, because who we get in South Dakota is going to be determined based on who the United States accepts as a whole. That same trend that you see at that federal level is occurring here in South Dakota. There are a number of different structures relative to resettlement and how this operates nationally. We are one of a state that's called a replacement designee status. What that means is that as a private entity, we're responsible for resettlement as opposed to a state government being responsible for resettlement. So we are the sole resettlement agency, and what that means is that anybody who arrives in the state of South Dakota who has refugee status and is under 5 years within country, we have an obligation to serve, regardless of where they are. And so primarily, our primary office is here in Sioux Falls, but we do maintain a staff presence in both Aberdeen and Huron to help support local communities with arrivals there. Our role as the resettlement agency is that early self-sufficiency. So what we're doing is setting up housing for individuals who are arriving so that they can get off the plane and go to a furnished apartment that has basic household items that are determined at that federal level in terms of what they would receive. We're helping to set up immunizations and health screenings with our public health entities, helping enroll children into schools. So approximately half of the arrivals into South Dakota are under the age of 18, so would be integrating into our schools as well. The federal government provides support for up to 8 months or until an individual attains employment. So really our focus right away is trying to develop an employment plan, identify what kinds of skills and abilities that new arrival has that if they're an employable adult, and try to connect them with employment. And then we are available. A common misnomer is that we're only involved in the first 90 days, but as the resettlement agency, we work with individuals for at least up to 5 years, and they're eligible for case management and ongoing assistance during that time frame. We're very proud of the work that we do as a resettlement agency, and one of the things that we're proud of is that we have really great outcomes. South Dakota is a very welcoming state. We have a great employment environment, and we feel that our outcomes demonstrate that. So we have on this slide some of the outcomes from fiscal year 19, which is our fiscal year. 91% of those who arrived were in self-sufficient households within 8 months upon arrival. Their average starting wage was $12.86 per hour. 98% of employed adults had access to benefits, and 94% of those adults who secured employment maintained that employment for 90 days. Another thing that often comes up as individuals are thinking about the resettlement program is what's the impact on our communities. There's been a lot of research that's been done at the national level. This slide shows you some of that research, but basically indicates that as there's a net benefit to having refugees arrive in our communities, that they are solid workers that help our employers meet workforce needs, that they tend to have higher entrepreneurship rates upon arrival and higher home ownership rates upon arrival. So definitely has a positive gain for our communities. We're here today to ask for consent. You've never seen me here talk about consent before, so this is a change for us. As I said, this is primarily a federal program, but in September of this year, the president issued an executive order that is intended to involve states and localities in a consent process relative to resettlement. And so in order for resettlement to continue after May 31st of this year, we both need to obtain state-level consent and county-level consent is the guidance that we're being issued at the federal level in order to continue to accept refugees. And in December, Governor Noem issued a letter of consent at that state level, so we are here now to request your consent at the county level. Our projections for the coming year, as my earlier slide showed, we're seeing a trend in terms of decreasing number of arrivals, but the president has set 18,000 as the number of refugees for federal fiscal year 20. What that means for us here in South Dakota is we would expect between 60 and 100 arrivals. And the population groups that we're working with and have been working with in the last couple of years are Eritreans, Ukrainians, the Congolese, and the Burmese. With that, I would entertain any questions that the commission has. Yes.
Commissioner Heiberger?
Thank you for the presentation, and it's not, it was a good comment that there's a difference between refugees and
immigrants.
Immigrants, I'm sorry, no, I forgot it. But yes, I was aware of that. So projections are, you project maybe 100 arrivals into the state of South Dakota for next year. So how many in this last year came and were placed in Minnehaha County specifically?
So currently, all arrivals are arriving into Sioux Falls currently. We have a small number of cases who are then moving to Aberdeen or into Huron, which is why we provide some staff support, but that's a relatively smaller number compared to the overall number.
So this last year, we maybe settled 90 people in Minnehaha County.
If we go back to this slide here, so in federal fiscal year 2019, which would be the fiscal year that ended in September of 19, there were 130 individuals were settled into the state of South Dakota. And most of those individuals, approximately, I would say about 101 were into
Okay.
Sioux Falls.
Thank you.
Tim.
Karski?
Thank you for a great presentation, a lot of good information here that, and hopefully people take the time to understand it, because I think it would clear up a lot of misconceptions. We're the local government, but you talk about Huron and Aberdeen, so Beetle and Brown County, do they have anything that they have to do to approve this?
Any community where resettlement occurs would need local consent. So yes, Huron and Aberdeen would both be areas that we would need to seek consent if there were to be arrivals into those communities.
They probably haven't taken any action yet.
We have focused right now on the state level consent, and obviously because the large majority of our arrivals are into Sioux Falls, we are coming here first.
Okay. And I guess my second question, kind of in relation to what Commissioner Heiberger was asking, it'd be nice to tie a number to what we're talking about. I know Burley County in North Dakota did that. They said they're going to accept what they accepted in the past. Can you comment on that?
Thank you, Commissioner Karski. In your packet, you will see the executive order. One of the other pieces that has come as we've worked to understand this is the consent has to be without condition, is the language on it. I don't know how the Burley County decision is going to be perceived in terms of when that's reviewed to see if that's adequate, but it says without condition within that, so you can't restrict, we only want people from the Ukraine.
But, I mean, without, if I may, you only have so much capacity.
Yes, and that is the consultation process as part of the abstract for us to say, in working with the community, what is the capacity? And so we do establish a targeted number in that process. It is not in and of itself a firm ceiling. Even if you read the executive order, the department, even if the governor and a locality says no, the Department of State still has the ability to place people. So this is new territory totally for us. I just don't know what the perception will be at the federal level if there is a cap placed in the written consent until we have some experience with this. Right now, as Rebecca said, our anticipation is 60 to 100, with 130 the year we just ended. Our max year, up in the 500 range, and so.
Okay. Thank you.
Other questions or comments? Commissioner Benega.
I would just make the comment that I've had the opportunity to talk to some employers who have worked with the program, and it's amazing to me to listen to the vetting process and how long that takes and what they go through. And then the employer's response is that these are some of the best entry-level employees that they've ever had. So I admire the work that you do, and frankly, if that process was in effect when we were talking about Norwegians and Germans, none of us would be here today. So I appreciate what you're doing.
Barth.
I think all of us become a little immune to the numbers that we see. I read The Economist magazine, and I've read about the issues in Burma. I know about Eritrea, etc. And there's going to be other countries in a similar sense. But when 100,000 or 400,000 people are murdered or raped, it's just a big number. When you see a koala bear on fire on TV, that really is rough. But that's what's happening. And if we shut the door on these people, they're going to be on fire. They're going to be murdered. And that I don't want that on my conscience.
Anything else? All right, well, we very much appreciate the information that you've provided, and thank you very much for coming today. Okay. All right, so that takes us to item 26, which is an annual review of the Minnehaha County Facility Power Outage Response Protocol. Today is a great example of the breadth of issues that we face in the county, so.
Good morning, Craig Dewey,
Morning.
Commission Office. This is really just a quick review. This power outage response protocol has already been sent to department heads, and they have been asked to review this policy with their staff. And the policy was implemented according to the Policies and Procedures Manual that was adopted by Minnehaha County. And really, we want to make sure that if the power goes out, that members of the public and staff know the proper procedures so that everyone can remain safe until the power comes back on. And so you don't need to take any action. I'm just here to summarize that this takes place, and according to the county's adopted Policies and Procedures Manual, this review needs to happen before the beginning of February. So here is your notice that has been sent. Would be happy to answer any questions if you have them.
Commissioner Heiberger.
Just a comment that this was revised in 2011, and I think we actually might have had a power outage or something that said, hey, we need to look at this and update it, and it's, I think they did a really good job in 2011 of looking at all of the issues in the building, and I think it's great to look at it again and make sure that it's not falling by the wayside.
Any other comments, questions? All right, no actions required. Thank you very much. All right, so that takes us to liaison reports. Are there any liaison reports today?
I don't have any liaison assignments.
We will fix that for you. Commissioner Heiberger.
I just have one. I did meet with the 4-H last week, and I know there'd been some concerns about the phone issue that they'd been having, and I just wanted to let you all know that that has been resolved, and it was resolved quickly by our office and by the IT department, so.
All right, thank you. Commissioner Karski.
Last night, yesterday afternoon from 3:30 to 5 o'clock, the executive, we don't have a board formally yet, I guess, of triage, but met with the mayor and the presidents of Avera and Sanford, and a lot of attorneys and support staff, and we had a 90-minute meeting, and we're going to formally organize the end of the month, and there will be some press releases and formal signing of a document saying that we're moving forward, and yeah, it's a lot of good stuff going on there. I wish I could give you, blow by blow of the entire meeting. Great questions, and liking what I'm seeing.
Great, good. Thank you for that update. So, anything else? Any other liaison reports? Old business? Any old business? Any new business? All right, I'd entertain a motion to recess the Minnehaha County Commission meeting.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. We'll take about a 10-minute recess, and we'll reconvene into executive session.